So what did you do today, Dad?
I graded papers.
Somebody,
I graded lots of papers.
Please, anybody in this room, if anybody is here, get these beggars out of here.
I think my son may have blown a gasket.
That's good.
And then the new intro song, which is do diddle do 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 diddle do do diddle do 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 diddle do do diddle do do.
Hey, welcome to the Book is Better podcast. We are a family of four reviewing book to film adaptations. This is a clean podcast. We talk about heavy stuff sometimes, though. So this episode is probably not one you're going to want to watch or listen to around the kiddos. However, we will keep it clean as much as we can, you know? Spoiler alert for this episode. We are discussing the Odyssey. In fact, Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. And I do want to be clear that it's Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, and you'll understand a little more about what I mean as we get into this episode. We are going to spoil it. So if you have not read it in the... When was this written?
It was probably written down in the 8th century.
3,000 years ago.
It's like 8th century.
It's about 3,000 years
so
ago.
if you haven't, if you had not had enough time since the 8th century BC to read the Odyssey, you should get on that. And I also am confused as to why you clicked on the episode to begin with. But also, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey did come out recently. So if you're waiting to watch that, just give it a second.
Yeah. Maybe you can just watch the movie.
Maybe just watch the movie. I don't know. Maybe it's like the right decision or whatever. It's fine.
If you like 8th century Greek poetry, you should go for it.
Yeah. I think that it was funny. I found out recently that the first modern novel wasn't written until like the end of the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a format people used. So
right.
Yeah. No wonder the Bible is the most popular book in the whole world. It has prose and interesting stories, and then there's the Odyssey. It's like the two interesting things that ever were written before the 1800s, I guess. I don't know.
Do you want me to give you another factoid with those two things?
Always.
The Bible has vastly more original or closer to the original copies available than the Odyssey.
That's pretty cool. So today's fun fact. Which power of the little G gods would you most want to possess? Mostly because I've just been watching a lot of Avengers films. I think that I want to be Zeus because I would love to call down lightning from heaven. Sounds really cool.
I think I would choose... It's Athena is love, right? Is that
Athena
correct?
Is wisdom and war.
Who's love?
Aphrodite.
Well, it's a cooler name. I like that better.
It is. Aphrodite is a cooler name.
I would like the power to control love, because there's a lot of people I would never in 2 million millennia put together that somehow got together. And
that is literally the least romantic reason for anyone ever wanting to control the power of love that it's ever happened. So good job. You came up with, you did it. You did it.
Well, then I'll go for Poseidon, because I would not abandon Percy Jackson.
I found one. Hermes.
Oh,
it's a good one.
He's the messenger.
His son was the bad guy in Percy Jackson.
That's very likely, but Hermes himself was supposed to be Zeus's son.
You know what? Poseidon has dominion over horses. So I'm Poseidon, and I have all the horsepowers.
I did read a list of things somebody posted yesterday that was like things that sound more interesting than they actually are, and one of the answers was horsepower. Like 1 horsepower.
How about we look at a plot summary of
Dad,
this
you should read
ancient Greek mythology.
Plot summary, win.
This ancient poem by Homer.
That's not how you say his name.
Who knows? Do you speak Greek? Ancient Greek?
I, in fact, do not.
Odysseus, the hero of the story. Kind of. journeys from his victory in the Trojan War back home to Ithaca, not that far away. But it takes a distressingly long time.
Why?
Odysseus has experienced trials and triumphs on his Odyssey, while his wife Penelope and son Telemachus fight off suitors in a massive power grab, holding out hope for many years, 20 years, that Odysseus is still breathing, still headed home. But is he? What prevented him? That is the story of the Odyssey. So what did we like about this adaptation that's not different than any of the multiple versions we listened to or read?
I like how big and long it was. It was epic. It took a long time for him to get back home, but he loved his wife and son and his home country and his palace. Yeah. He yearned for them so much. He made a promise and he was going to keep it.
Yeah, I like that he preserved that Nolan preserved that, and he could have easily had Penelope, fall prey to a suitor, or have Odysseus fall prey to one of the people that tried to stop him. And this,
but
he did in a way, but I mean, his heart was always driven to get back home, and I think taking us through that, I do like that he kept that.
In all versions, she was faithful.
Yeah. Yes.
I think my favorite thing that was the same was that we kept Odysseus tying himself to his boat when they were passing the sirens so that he would be able to hear them. But unlike everyone else on the boat who had their ears filled with wax, he would hear them, but was prohibited from pursuing them. Pastor Maddie actually mentioned it in his sermon this week, and I thought it was just such an interesting thing to talk about, like a good man, whether or not Odysseus was a good man. He was just using that as an example of something in general. But a good man doesn't simply say, oh, I hope that temptation doesn't come in my life. He creates situations where he binds himself from being able to say yes to it, even if it does show up. So I just thought that was really cool. So I liked that. All right. So changes today. We're starting with characters, then setting, then the plot / timeline. So Mother, would you like to get us started?
I would love to get us started. We're going to begin at the beginning with Odysseus himself.
Okay.
In the movie, he is guilt-ridden. He's a survivor of great trauma. He's also modest. He's haunted by Troy. His cunning and his shrewdness is stripped really from the character. He's not. He doesn't come across that way at all. And I 200% I would agree with that all the way across the board. But in the book, he's like a man of twists and turns. He's a schemer. He's a liar. He is a proud boaster. And Emily Wilson critiqued this. I have so much to say about how this Emily Wilson works into this whole thing. Emily Wilson's critique on this was, he doesn't seem to want food. What does he want?
He's a selfish man, so he wants anything that occurs to him that feels like it will get him home.
Yes.
I think that this was definitely the hardest part for me, because that's why I call it Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. He made Odysseus someone who wasn't just desperate to get back home, but who was also someone in 2026 that you would look at and have compassion for, want to root for. Which I guess is fine, but that is not the person in the story in a lot of the cases. He pridefully nearly gets them killed by the Cyclops. He actually will, he's not a faithful guy. He just does a lot of things that are not very nice. And I think that his positioning as a selfish man, he was a strong man. He was a strong warrior. He was someone who could use wisdom, but he was not a kind man. He actually was annoyed and constantly stopping the men on his ship from mourning those who died. Like he was the one that kept standing in the way and saying, no, don't do that. We have to move on. We have to do the next thing. So I don't know.
Interestingly enough, your first descriptor there was that Nolan made you have compassion for him, which I agree with. But a strong leader that is responsible for a country, for a land, or a whether it's soldiers or whatever, they don't want compassion. They're not looking for compassion. Yeah. They're not striving to receive it. They're making hard decisions that other people could not or would not easily make. And I do think that is interesting that Nolan crafted him into someone that you did feel for, because it made him a little weaker, I think, of a man.
I wouldn't say that they made him someone that you had compassion for. I think they made him someone that you felt sorry for. Obviously, he was he had been a terrible person because he was in war and was successful in war, so he should feel guilty, and you should feel bad that he's that kind of person. Unfortunately, that's what I felt like they were trying to go for, because it is true that if you have to make those tough decisions in war and things like that, that you aren't making kind, sweet overtures. You're killing people. That's what war is. And for whatever reason that they were at war with Troy, they were at war, and the people of Troy would have killed all of Odysseus' troops. He wasn't the leader; he was the kind of second in command. But they would have done the same thing. And the movie, Nolan makes him never good that he was successful as a warrior. He's damaged.
I don't think you could have made this movie true to its source material in 2026, which is hard because I think if you can't, should you be making it? Like, if it's this big of an epic poem, was it the right call to? Anyway, I think it's obviously, it's done. It's what's done is done. It's just one example of where there's a lot of things that make people uncomfortable. So they took it out.
Yeah.
This will be a theme. So,
yes, that's probably not the last time that will come up. Well, there was another change in the characterization, and that was with Telemachus. In the movie, he's rescued by his father, kills the traitor Melanthius. He's crowned king at the end when Penelope and Odysseus is exiled and Penelope goes with him. In the book, however, he fights beside his father and he hangs the maids, many of which were deceptive and betrayed Odysseus and Penelope. And he was not crowned, though he would be crowned. That was an understood thing.
Coming.
He would be crowned. The movie, he's rescued by his father. In the book, he goes away on a long journey to try and find his father. Part of what takes place during that journey is that he becomes a man. He realizes how to lead people. He realizes what it takes, the difficulty it takes to lead people so that he's ready to become the king. We don't get that. He goes on a little bit of a journey, but not much. But in the film, I really appreciate Tom Holland's acting. I think he's a great actor. I think he was miscast. He seemed very childlike. He needed a harsher edge, and Tom Holland doesn't have that. He has a baby face.
But I think he was directed. I think he was directed to portray this character, because my issue with him is where in the book he fights beside his father. I thought that Odysseus was too concerned that his son never see battle, but he's raising the future king, who is a military leader. So
I think what he was supposed to be concerned about was that his son not do something against Zeus, which would cause him to be exiled.
Yeah.
I think that was what he was supposed to be most concerned with. I'll do the dirty work because it will mean that I'm exiled.
I also thought he was miscast. I've seen a ton of people that have said like, oh, it's some of Tom Holland's best work. And I don't, again, very similarly, don't think that it's because of Tom Holland. I don't think he did a bad job with what he was given.
Correct.
He did not seem like the person that you read about. They just didn't seem like the same person at all. Like the Tom Holland version of that guy, like would not have done the whole ending would not have happened. I mean, the ending of the movie didn't happen like it did in the book, but you know what I'm saying? It's like there was a different person there.
The actually, I know this may sound a little weird, but the character that was created for the movie that ended up being the soldier that waited when the Trojan horse was left and didn't realize, outside of Troy, I think had that been played by Tom Holland, it would have been a very memorable part for him, and it would have fit who he was. He would have looked,
it would have felt more authentic.
He would have looked very innocent. He would have looked like he, felt betrayed that they didn't tell him what he needed to know, and he was killed in the process. He would have been tragic, but it would have fit. I think it would have fit him better.
Interesting.
Of course, we have Penelope. In the movie, she's indignant that people aren't content that she sits the throne. She's also more accepting of Odysseus' return at the end of the book. She took a lot of convincing. I finished the book this morning. I was like, girl, it's a whole chapter you need to be convinced that your husband's home. He's already killed everyone. Why would he have done
Like,
that?
on
Let's
your
hope
behalf.
it's him.
Yeah, she in the book she doesn't have a girl power speech that wins her the Oscar, but she also doesn't believe that her husband has returned. And I get it. But after all the suitors die, it's interesting. So
I did not have a problem with her character in the film, other than when she said the thing about like, I've been sitting on the throne for 20 years. And I'm like, in the timeline that this is written, that would have been irrelevant. You being a woman would have literally meant that no one would have even blinked an eye at it. So that was a little bit unbelievable for me. I mean, the whole movie is it's fantasy. It's like
sitting on the throne, they wouldn't have been wasting away her money and possessions.
Yeah.
Because she would have been in control of them to at least some degree.
But I thought Anne Hathaway did an amazing job, and I really liked her portrayal for the most part. Moving on to Odysseus part 2, I wanted to mention this specifically. He was unfaithful to Penelope. In the movie, he was faithful to her, didn't have relations with anyone else, whatever. When he was with Calypso, he was drugged, like fully drugged captivity. However, in the book, he was Circe's willing lover, and some sources estimate he was with Circe for about a year, which is crazy. Like, it felt like it went by fast in his description, so maybe that's not true. And then that when he was with Calypso, there was part of him willing to be her lover, even though he eventually said, oh, but I want to go home. So I did think that was interesting. I think in 2026, if you put that on screen, no one's going to support Odysseus at that point for the most part. Like,
I think the movie chose to make him forgetful. It made a big point with Calypso that he couldn't remember who he was. He couldn't remember who his family was. One of the other changes in the movie was that there are no Olympians, no gods on screen. Poseidon instead is represented simply by the sea. Zeus is a lightning flash and a sound of thunder. There's no Hermes, the messenger. In the book, the gods are active characters. The monsters are there, but I think it was a miss to leave them out because
I thought that was weird.
They moved the plot in the book. The gods argue with one another, and one of them's trying to outwit another one. and Odysseus is the pawn. Not only Odysseus, but his men that end up all dead. They're pawns of the gods, and I think that's an important part of the poem and the book, and it's missing in the film.
I liked it.
You liked it that way?
The only god who does appear in the film is Athena. It is in visions, and the twist at the end of the film is that it is a guilt hallucination based on a Trojan priestess that was beheaded in the Trojan horse invasion.
I never thought that was Athena when we were watching the movie. The
It took a
only
while.
time I realized it was Athena was when I've watched reviews of it that said, "Oh yes, this was Athena." I was like, "Oh, well, I thought he was just dreaming about the priestess that was killed, and she kept coming back to him in memory."
You
in
don't see the
hallucination."
priestess be killed until the last 10 minutes of the movie. though.
Right. But
Um,
that when she's killed, it's like, oh, that was the priestess, and he's
Yeah.
dreaming about her. I never connected that to that's Athena.
That's funny.
I got it. It was like a personification of the physical thing that Penelope gave him. Not like I got it the first time I saw her.
Which was different in the book.
Yeah, I don't think she gave him an Athena trinket, did
Right.
he?
It wasn't Athena. It was a different trinket.
Yeah, in the book, Athena's like just a real goddess like the other little g gods. You know, she disguises him. She guides Telemachus. She deflects spears. She ends the
She
feud.
disguises herself a few different times.
But Josiah, you said that you liked his representation of the gods rather than making them other characters.
Yeah.
In the once you
Well,
describe
first of all,
that,
I hate the gods as a concept. Why am I watching a story where it's all Deus Ex Machina? And none of these characters matter. It's all just what the gods decide. And so Chris decided, I think probably pretty early on, and it was obvious to him that it's like, this is about the human characters. This is not about the god characters.
I hadn't considered this aspect of it until we were preparing for this, and I saw this. If you had actors representing them, you add a lot more to this cast. And then
That's true.
at some point, does it become the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire Part 3, where you've got all these villains, you've got them everywhere, and you can't really even get invested in them?
On that part, I would say when they gave the first trailer, just the very, very first teaser trailer, 2.5 years ago, I anticipated that it would be a massive cast and a truly massive number of people. And that's not exactly what it was. There were large numbers of people, but you didn't know them.
They kept the cast like relatable
You
and
knew
follow.
a few
You could
of-
follow them.
You knew a few of his soldiers, just a few, mostly the leaders, and a few of the people that he fought with. And then you knew a few of the suitors. It's really small, the number of people that you actually
And the
know.
dog. Don't forget the dog.
And the dog.
I kind of wanted to see the gods on screen. I think the only thing that it really bugs me about was that it added to the vibe of like nothing is really magical. Like we call this thing Zeus's law, but it's like, is Zeus even really real, or is this all just kind of our weird interpretation of it? And I liked that the book felt like an actual fantasy story. You know what I mean?
I mean, Zeus isn't real.
I know he's not real, but in the film, they took something where the story had things that were very much not real and very much magic and fantasy, and they made them into a movie that made it almost, not completely, almost seem like it could all mostly be like actual just things that were there, and you just interpreted it as being the gods, you know?
Well,
So I
and
think that was the only thing it took. I don't know.
And that may very well be what Nolan wanted to do. Here are just normal circumstances, people making decisions, some of them poor decisions, and there are consequences. Not that they're forced upon them, but they're just consequences to your decisions. That may have been his conscious choice.
I wish we could have gotten him to come on to the podcast and talk to us about it. But
we're not quite big enough for him to come and talk to us yet.
No, we had a conversation and he was like, hey, Monday nights are really bad for me. And I was like, I'm sorry. My schedule is very full. I can't move the time for you. It's the only time we're available.
There's just no way we could move ours to accommodate him. So.
So we move on to Antinous, I think.
I believe
that's the best way to
That is
say
correct.
In the movie, he is the chief villain. He has an invented backstory. He dodges the war by sending Sinon, let's say, in his place. He plots Telemachus's murder. He's constantly at his throat, just constantly at him. He's going to take over and he's going to get his mother and just taunting him throughout the whole thing. Also, Melantho's lover, he was killed last. In the book, he's just merely the worst of 108 suitors. There's no history with Odysseus, and he's the first one to go.
Another person that invented things was Christopher Nolan. He didn't invent this character, but Sinon was not in the Odyssey at all in the book. So Virgil's Aeneid is the epic poem in which Sinon is featured. And I think the story is different. It's not an Antinous thing. So Sinon exists, but I don't know the specific story. In the film, Sinon is sent to Troy in place of Antinous. It kind of seems like voluntarily-ish, maybe like volunteers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like he's his
Antinous,
servant, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I will say in some of the translations, I did read this, some of the translations, he's like a cousin. In others, he's a servant/slave. So it's unclear like what his original relationship would have been. So he was related in the Aeneid. Maybe not to Antinous though. I don't remember. It was something weird. So
let's stop for a minute and go read that.
The whole Aeneid. Yeah.
Well,
that makes sense.
take
It's
you
probably a good
30
idea.
minutes.
You say Aeneid, I hear Anus. I can't not hear it.
Not
I didn't know how it was pronounced.
Not the
I didn't know how it
anus.
was pronounced, but
Aeneid.
It's Virgil's Aeneid.
He is the one who lets himself get caught by Trojans and convinces them, the Greeks left me behind and they mistreated me. And this giant horse is a holy gift to Athena. And if you destroy it, Troy will fail. But if you bring it inside, Troy will conquer Greece.
Same role.
Same story.
Is there something about a connection with Antinous?
It is. He was the cousin of Odysseus in the
Okay,
Aeneid.
okay. So he's related to Odysseus. All right. So in the film, he is indeed the character sent to Troy in Antinous's place, who dies at the horse in the first few seconds of the movie. Then we see Sinon again in the underworld, and Odysseus uses that alibi or alias, whatever, when he returns to Ithaca in the film, before he reveals himself as who he is. So none of that happened in the book. He's in the other book, but related to Odysseus, not Antinous. I don't mind having the character because of how they developed, this is how we fooled them to get the horse into Troy. I thought it was cool to see some of the Trojan War that was not necessarily in the Odyssey itself. I think the thing that bothered me, we're not talking about casting or any of that stuff. I just literally don't understand why he had to be related to Antinous. It was a little confusing.
Why to make it,
and having a little boy that actually didn't look like the actor made it more confusing to keep the character straight as to who they were. And it was Antinous kind of seemed like he was not real. He was trying to go and but if I have to stay, I don't know. It just felt confusing and a little bit immersion breaking for me that we have this character that isn't actually in the story in this part. I wish you'd kind of just had the character, even if you put them in the underworld. I just didn't understand the Antinous connection.
I think that the connection was an attempt, partially failed perhaps, to make Antinous even more despisable.
I will say at the very beginning when he's there and Odysseus is in the horse and he's listening and then he hears him get killed and the spear goes through the horse, right?
Yeah.
When that happens, that was one of the moments in the movie I most felt Matt Damon's emotion in the character. Because there were other times I felt like, whether it was the direction he was given or the way he interpreted it, there were times I felt like the emotion should have been stronger. But in this time, I was completely convinced there in that moment that he was so grieved over Sinon getting killed. And so I know it's a little small thing and it's very not central to the plot or whatever, but I can just remember thinking, oh, Damon's gonna kill this. And as we went through, there were other parts where I was kind of like, he's not killing it. Like, I want to see him do it. But Calypso is Charlize Theron, and I've heard several reviewers now say, okay, we listened to Critical Drinker, and he liked the movie better than he expected. I would say that if you follow him at all, he expected to totally trash this movie, and he didn't trash it completely. But one of the things he said that I thought was so funny was, no throw off to Anne Hathaway, but if I had the option to spend the rest of my life with Charlize Theron, even in a drug state, and I'd probably pick Charlize Theron.
I mean,
come on. She's aged different. I know they aged Anne in the movie, right? Anne Hathaway's still beautiful. But in the movie, she is seemingly mortal. She keeps an amnesiac Odysseus docile with lotus flowers, lotus eaters folded in, and she frees him herself. But in the book, it's a god. She's definitely a goddess. You don't think of her as a human there with him. She's offering immortality. He's fully aware. He's weeping on her shore, but he's freed by Zeus's order. And
isn't the eating of the lotus flowers, isn't that one of the ways that she traps the rest of his crew?
Yeah, so it's not Calypso. It was the peaceful lotus eaters. I think it was an extra journey that his men stopped on, because I think his men are gone by the time movie Odysseus gets there.
By the time movie.
Yeah.
So in the book, the lotus eaters feed his men lotuses. They forget why they're there. They forget about wanting to go home to Ithaca, and he rescues them. He forces them back onto the ship. It makes me think of the wax in the ear moment, because I think he ties them so they can't escape back to shore.
Yeah, they're desperate to go back, and he has to prevent them. Yeah, there's more than one of those types of episodes where he has to save his men from themselves, from what they've gotten into.
Oh,
and
wow.
This is another one. Circe in the movie, wary, world-weary witch. There's no romance. The stay lasts only a day. Eurylochus, is that the right way to pronounce that?
Eurylochus?
I think so.
One of his men is turned into a pig in the book.
Well, all of them are turned into pigs, but
I guess he's the first.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, we made that note.
In the book, she's a seductive goddess. It's a year-long affair, and Eurylochus especially is the one who escapes the pig spell in the book. So it's different. It was strange. It was just a strange one. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it was awkward. Watching her mold their faces into pigs was an interesting choice.
Oh my gosh. It was so intense that I was not ready for the intensity that was going to come out. And I was like, oh my God, what is she doing? And I kept seeing Agatha in Minority Report. Now, she was kind of a creepy character in that movie too, so it didn't make her uncreepy. But just watching her, and she she ruled this role. I really, really, really enjoyed how she portrayed this role, as dark and weird as it was. But.
So I loved this scene. It might have been one of my favorite parts of the film for some reason. I just thought it was really creative. Fun trivia fact: this was not a CGI scene at all.
Wow.
They used clay molds, I think. Yeah, a sculpting clay.
Yeah.
And the actress physically, after they got the scenes where the guys were there, she reached and started molding their clay faces, which I just thought was really, really interesting. What I didn't like about Circe was I get in a post Me Too world, while you think that it makes her, I don't know, relatable or something, but Circe wasn't afraid of being attacked by men.
Yeah.
It just, I know that it, maybe it was still an act or whatever, but it was not, that part of her in the film was are you just trying to make me care about her? Because she's really interesting and cool, and she's a pretty cool, sort of villain if you just let her be.
She was this ruthless, powerful witch, but then you were supposed to also see her as a victim. It was odd to me. Pick a lane, just one or the other.
Sure.
I loved it.
Another wild scene that I think is basically in there's elements that are in the book taken from the movie, but Helen of Troy and her sister Clytemnestra.
There's an interesting naming thing. They're twin sisters, so one has a simple name and one has this really complicated name.
Well, I think Helen might be a simple name because we happened to use it for the basis of all Western culture. Is called Hellenistic.
Yeah.
But in an alternate universe, we could have lived in a Clytemnestric culture.
Interesting.
In the movie, they're identical twins, both played by Lupita Nyong'o. Helen's face is scarred by Menelaus. That's John Bernthal Frank, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was...
Typecast.
That was because... Was it Clytemnestra was Agamemnon's wife? And Clytemnestra she took revenge upon her husband for the Trojan War or something with that, I believe.
Something. When he came back from the war, she killed him.
Yeah.
And I guess Helen mentions, she talks about that with Menelaus, and Menelaus does not like her talking about it.
But I think the difference is in the movie, they made the sisters their why they had been enslaved or captured or whatever was a trade war thing, that culminated in the Battle of Troy. So that's not really in the book.
In the book, they're half sisters. They're not identical twins. And Helen of Troy is serenely restored at Sparta.
The point of the reframing of the war is not that trade would not have been the purpose of a war, but that in history, Helen of Troy was the most beautiful woman ever to have lived, and the war was about her. Which is also why in the book, she was a half-sister to Clytemnestra, and they couldn't look exactly the same because Helen had beauty that was beyond all others.
The face that launched 1,000 ships.
There were a lot of cut characters and groups from the film. So those who were cut were the Phaeacians of Nausicaa. I did look this up. I was curious. Laertes, Euryclea the nurse. Although I feel wouldn't the character at the end that was the nurse be Euryclea?
Even if she's not named,
the old woman?
I think that basically is the same character.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's crazy that we all know who the nurse is. She made an impact on us, I guess.
She did. Hermes, Aeolus, Achilles, and Odysseus' mother, Anticlea, in the underworld, and Elpenor. So this is actually important. So the Phoenicians in Nausicaa, in the Odyssey, the poem, that's where Odysseus is, and he tells them the story That's the place he is as he tells the whole story. They just cut it from the book or the film because they just show you the story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so he doesn't ever have to go to Nausicaa or whatever it is.
Okay,
Elpenor-
I'm remembering that actually. Okay, yes.
The Phaeacians help.
Yeah.
I think they help him get back.
Right.
They help
Yeah, I think
provide
so.
some things to help him get back after he tells the
Elpenor
story.
is his youngest comrade on the mission back from Troy, who they finally get. It's when they escape from Circe, or when they like get out of her evil grip, and she essentially like agrees to leave them and let them go peacefully. She gives them a bunch of alcohol, and I thought this was so funny because it just was like out of nowhere and so random. So Elpenor is just like this kid who's dumb and drinks too much wine and decides that he's going to go and sleep on Circe's roof instead of in the house.
And he falls.
And he falls off the roof and breaks his neck, and they just like walk outside and their friend is dead.
Yeah.
And then he's the guy that you see in
Hades.
when you go to Hades instead of Sinon. And I'm like, that was weird. So I guess in that case, maybe Sinon being there is fine. So those are all just people that were not in the film.
You
at
remember
all.
who Laertes is?
I don't.
Laertes.
Odysseus' dad. We see.
Oh, that's right. Because he asks how his mom and dad are.
I think we see him in Hades, but he's also in the end.
His mom is in Hades because she's passed away.
He's
Dad
literally
is still alive
like,
when he arrives home.
I think Laertes has lines in the last chapter. Like they're all looking, yeah. Because Odysseus like sees all these dead people. It's like, what does everyone who died have to say about the end of the story? And Laertes gets some lines.
Well, let's talk about setting changes.
Yeah, it's a much more grounded world. This in the movie, it's a time of apparent magic. Is a quote. The divine action in the movie is shown as a often natural phenomenon that could be explained by nature, by chance. There's no Olympus. The book is like obviously an enchanted cosmos where gods and magic are unambiguously real and ever present. And I think that's totally up Nolan's alley. I think that's,
Nolan does that.
It's very modern storytelling, modern movie making, but very grounded. I think also along those lines, we have of course, it's natural. I don't think it might be the most natural use of time in a Nolan movie. He loves telling stories out of order. This is probably the most natural, I think. If I'm remembering correctly, might be the most natural.
You start toward the end and then you go back to the beginning.
Yeah. And it's like out of order
jump
because
back and forth a little bit.
People keep telling stories from the Iliad.
Yeah. But
True.
But I think that's interesting because I knew as the farther we got into it, I was like, oh, did I get smarter because I'm following his timeline? Every other movie, and I love his movies, but I always have to go back and watch a second time to nail down. I could follow this one a little easier. So
I think this one was easier to follow because there are physical things that you see. Odysseus, you see Odysseus age. You see him
sure
get very frail when he's on the beach with Calypso, I think it is. Initially, he's very frail and looks very emaciated. There are other times when he looks strong and powerful.
And
sometimes he's gray and sometimes he's not.
I also wonder if it's easier to follow because the reason for the out of order storytelling is because we're telling stories, which gives the storyteller in universe the opportunity to say, I am about to tell you a story that happened 7 years ago and 5 months.
Yeah.
And here's how it fits in. And this is why I'm telling you. You can work that all into
I
dialogue.
would agree with that.
in the film, it's on screen repeatedly. It's the prologue. They start there. There's flashbacks. Sac is shown as a war crime atrocity, and we just alluded to that some in our comments. But in the book, the war is already over. The horse gets like a secondhand mention. The full story is in the Aeneid. I'm glad they kept the horse. I'm glad that he highlighted this part. One, it was a modern marvel at the time of that battle. I wondered how they would portray the men in there and all stuffed in and all that. I wondered how that would come out. And I thought it was successful. I felt like it was, you could see their struggle, and they weren't just in there sitting with their legs crossed having a party. It was a treacherous thing on their bodies, on their persons, and had to be there all that time together and all that.
I'm so glad they did it that way. I thought that was a really strong way to present it. I don't think I would have cared that much about the war if they hadn't just shown it to me on screen. So I was glad that they changed that.
Did you know that there's a phrase that comes from this? Beware Greeks bearing gifts.
Yes.
They use that in a lot of...
It's a more
I've
modern...
heard that.
Yeah.
It's a more modern phrase, but...
Racist.
But it's used in a lot of... It's used in a lot of humorous things as well as being an actual phrase.
Because let's be perfectly honest, it still seems rather strange to a modern listener that they were fighting this war for a decade. Their enemy suddenly disappears, and there's this massive horse left outside. So you decide to bring it inside. And it's filled with all of the Greek warriors. It just defies logic. It's like, what do you think that was from? And I watched a review that said, historically with the mythology, they would have believed it was a gift from the gods, that they would have, the enemy finally surrendered and they left it as a gift. It still seems strange.
Yeah. Another difference in the film, and this goes to Nolan's kind of grounded world idea, but the underworld in the film is a physical place where, quote, where fire meets ice. So it was filmed on Icelandic black sand coast. The ritual still works to raise some of the dead. There's hands rising from the sand, and then we see several dead, and they speak to Odysseus, which does happen in the book. But also with the book, it's actually a mythic realm reached by ship. Same in book and film, you hear Odysseus say something about how no one ever goes to the underworld and returns. But instead of them going to the underworld, it seems like they just had to sail far away into this place that looks a lot different. But I mean, I
think it's still it doesn't, what I'm reading, because I didn't think he went to the underworld in the film, but everything I'm reading online says he did go to the underworld.
That was the underworld, the place where fire meets ice in the film.
That doesn't make sense to me.
And that isn't that also where Sinon?
Yeah.
Yes, he spoke.
That's where they see Sinon.
He said, "You didn't tell
about
me that you were inside," and and I was killed for it.
Blind Tiresias, is that the guy's name who does the prophecy?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know.
Starts off the story.
Why is someone able to go to the underworld? I just wish that it were something like, this is where you can do a ritual where you can talk to the undead for a minute.
All right. I think we're to the plot. We've talked about a lot of it. So
plot and timeline. So Nolan frames the movie a bit differently. He starts with the bard's interrupted song plus memories that are recovered on Calypso's island. There are 3 braided timelines, and like Donna was saying before, it's a little easier to follow the different timelines in the movie. In the book, it's in media res. It's in the middle of the action, basically. Odysseus narrates the voyage himself while he's at the Phaeacian court, and all of that stuff is cut, and we're graced with hearing the story without the addition of the other characters that Odysseus had met on his way back. It's a good way to do it. I think he did a good job at that.
Yeah. Another big change to the plot, which I think is really interesting. I've never seen the film Troy, but the scene of this in Troy is really interesting. So Polyphemus, how would you say that?
Polyphemus, I think.
Polyphemus. Okay, so this is the Cyclops. In the book, I'll start there. He is given a bunch of wine by Odysseus's crew. There's a trick to basically get him drunk so that they can stab out his eye. They don't use wine in the film for this. In the book, Odysseus says, when asked what his name is, he says, "Nobody." Interestingly, in my translation, he translates it "no man." Like, so the joke works the same, but there's not the nobody wordplay in the film, and that is something that a lot of people have said was like very missed, because that is it is a good joke that like turns out to work. So like in the book, he says that his name is Nobody, and then when the Cyclops calls out to his fellow Cyclops and is yelling, and they're like, "Are you okay?" They're like, "Who's attacking you?" And he says, "Nobody." And they're like, "If nobody's attacking you, then you're fine," basically. And then finally, the way that they escape is a little different. So they do blind him in his sleep in the film. And they do blind him after he's gotten drunk in the book. But they actually put straw like on their backs so that they'll feel like the sheep.
I think it's
so they're able to escape.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's straw. Yeah, I think you're right.
In the film, I think they use straw, but they escape under the sheep in the book, but it's like done a little bit differently. And then the final thing that's really big is because of the nobody ruse in the book, he boasts his name as he leaves. And he says something along the lines of like, if your father Poseidon wants to know who did this to you, because he's permanently blinded and Poseidon's the only one that would ever heal him, he says, tell him it was Odysseus. And his crew was really upset at him. It was one of the signals of his selfishness and just brazen arrogance all over the place.
The hubris.
This is probably...
He does taunt a little bit in the film. It's just different.
Maybe the most famous thing that got cut from the book. I think the Cyclops sequence is probably the most popular part of the original book, if you don't count Memories of the Trojan War briefly being mentioned. I feel like I've read some multiple people wonder why the nobody ruse wasn't in the book or wasn't in the movie. I wonder if it would have been weird for this grounded movie to have the monster be speaking. He mumbles a little bit, but
he mumbles the name of Poseidon under his breath. But
I couldn't understand
listen
it,
really
and
closely.
They had to say he's mumbling Poseidon for me to understand it.
Sure.
So I'm wondering.
Sure.
Did Nolan think it was weird for the Cyclops to speak and just to like have a conversation with Odysseus? Of course, there's Aeolus. I think Aeolus is a god.
He is the son of Hippotes. I think he's a demigod. Maybe a god.
So he's not in the movie, obviously, but in the book, a bag of winds, W-I-N-D-S, opened within sight of Ithaca by the crew, who believed it to be gold.
He gifted the bag of winds to Odysseus.
Yeah. So their sails, it would fill their sails.
And this is how the final members of his crew die, I think, or like almost the end, because they're very close to home. And Aeolus stops Odysseus, wants to know what has happened. Odysseus and his guys spend a month there. Aeolus gives him the bag of winds. The crew thinks it's gold. They open it, but the winds blow them back to Aeolia, where Aeolus is, and he refuses to help them a second time because Odysseus is sleeping near his home at this point. Like he's literally in Ithaca. And so then the winds blow them back to Aeolia, and Aeolus basically says, I'm not going to help you because you are cursed by the gods because you ended up back here. Yeah. And it was actually their own greed that made them go back.
Wow. Then we have the Laestrygonians. In the movie, these were giant armored warriors in a shifting forest. There's no cannibalism in the scenes. Their fleet is fleet is like 3 ships. In the book,
and the fleet is of Odysseus's guys, right?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. No, I'm trying to keep track. You're fine.
In the book, they are cannibal giants. They smash 11 of the 12 ships and eat the crews. I'm not sorry they did not put this in here. I mean,
I think of all of the things in the movie, this was the most fantastical and hardest to look at realistically.
Which is funny because I see that they did not? It wasn't CGI. It was camera trickery using very tall actors and very short stand-ins for the soldiers.
Perhaps.
I think it might have been.
It just felt out of place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's on the movie poster.
The armor, for one, looked so out of place. It looked so medieval.
Yeah, the costuming was weird.
Yeah.
There was a lot more of eating of people in this book than I realized there was going to be.
Well, and see, that goes back to the theme of the book that I was talking about before. The gods use human beings. They're just pawns. There are lots of times where they are little more than food. The underworld, it was a bit different. The underworld visit. We talked a little bit about that already. In the movie, you only meet Tiresias, Agamemnon, and Sinon's ghost. Tiresias delivers all the warnings, the cattle, the sirens, Scala.
I think it's Scylla.
Scylla.
I don't know. I could be way off, but I think
in the
I would say
book, his mother is also there, and Achilles and Elpenor, and the sirens and Scylla warnings come from Circe instead. But
who is not in the underworld,
I was going
right?
to say, Circe's not in the underworld. That's on a different island. And speaking of the islands, when you look at the map of the entire voyage that took 20 years, that's a very small area. The Grecian islands are not massive. So it's just really weird that it took that amount of time. But
how 2026 privileged can you sound, Dad?
Oh, I did that.
Just because it's easy for you to travel that far. The sirens, which I really liked. As I said earlier, mostly the same. However, in the film, the song is personalized for Odysseus. It tells him he doesn't truly want to go home. They also actually do lose a crewman. I think he took his wax out. Yeah. I don't think it was that the wax didn't work. He actively took it out. Well, no. In the book, there's no one dies. The wax in their ears works fine. Okay. And the song is promising them knowledge of Troy. It's not personalized to Odysseus not wanting to go back home. And in the film, that's really weird because, Odysseus, even when he wasn't being faithful to his wife, really, really wanted to go home. That is the theme of the book. So,
Telemachus' ambush. Let's talk about in the movie how there was an ambush at the temple. And this is how the disguised Odysseus reunites with his son, even if Telemachus doesn't realize it.
How sweet.
Yes, so Odysseus saves him. That is the father-son reunion. Argos's tail wag later confirms it's dad.
Oh my gosh, the dog on the dung pile, by the way,
depressing.
I was disgusted and sad every time that I was so depressing.
Robert Pattinson kicked that dog early on.
I hated that. I did not like that.
How could you not hate him forever after that? In the book...
Okay, well, he was an actor, and he didn't really kick a dog, okay?
In the book, there was a sea ambush that was evaded. Odysseus revealed to Telemachus at Eumaeus' hut by Athena.
This is one of the differences because Telemachus does not go on the voyage, long voyage.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's an adjustment because it was on the voyage and his return from the voyage that they were in the book. In the poem, they were trying to kill him. They were setting an ambush for him. And he was warned by Athena, I believe, and taken off of the ship and meets Odysseus and all. So when he goes to the house, they're like, how did he escape us?
So some recognitions that were different in the movie. Penelope is via a return keepsake pin.
That's how they recognize that Odysseus was
Is
home.
the dog on the dung pile basically the same in the book? The dog recognizes him.
Does recognize
I forget.
him. But I think it's that it's not a dog. In the book, I think it's two dogs. When Telemachus goes to the swineherd, the dogs don't bark at him because the dogs don't bark at their master. And the only other person they've done that for is Odysseus. So when Odysseus comes disguised as the beggar, the dogs don't bark, and the swineherd suspects, but he doesn't know that that's Odysseus.
And then, yes, the Argos dog was left on a dung heap with parasites, wags his tail when Odysseus comes home, and then dies.
Cool.
Pet
And that is in the book.
Pet that good boy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's some other plot and timeline changes. The slaughter, for instance, in the movie, Penelope knowingly stages the bow contest. Odysseus takes the arrows to the back. Telemachus joins late. Some of the suitors ended up surrendering. And Antinous cowers and dies last. In the book, Athena assists. All 108 suitors die. None of them are spared. And Antinous dies first, not last.
He kicked a dog, so that's appropriate, actually.
So,
And I think that I felt like this.
and
I felt like
Telemachus
this
participates in the slaughter in the book.
Yeah.
I think that the way they did this, it was an engaging, film goer friendly fight. I felt like it was, intense enough, and Telemachus running upstairs and he's working with the guy up there to get the hole in the ceiling and throw down the weapons and that kind of thing.
He's trying to keep him from throwing
I
down
thought
the
that
weapons.
I thought that was great for the film goer, even though it is different than what is written. We've discussed a lot of other changes like this in other films that just make them just give you some big fight scene that doesn't seem to work. But I thought this was good. I thought this was great.
The part with Telemachus trying to keep the guy from throwing the weapons down, that felt to me like a failed Spider-Man thing. He's trying to stop this guy and he keeps throwing him across the room, and it's like, oh well, Spider-Man doesn't have his powers today. Something's wrong with him. He's feeling bad or whatever.
Wow.
That whole thing, that was just awkward to me.
I thought it was
just
pitiful.
never felt comfortable.
Does it maybe say maybe we have some actors that are in too many films in 1 year?
No.
I don't want that to be. I love these actors, but I'm seeing them repeatedly, and we're going to see them repeatedly through the rest of the year. And it's like, okay, wait, I need you to be different here. I need to see you as this other character.
Let's talk about the maids, or slaves, as Emily Wilson wants to ensure that you know that they're called. At the end of the book, let's talk to the end of the book. There are 12 enslaved women that Telemachus, Tom Holland, murders. He hangs them because they betrayed his family. So he mutilates Melanthius, who was Odysseus's enslaved swineherd. In the film, none of the women are hanged. Melantho, which I will point out sounds a lot like Melanthius, but is actually a woman. She's one of the servant girls, the one that was with Antinous in the film. Her fate is left ambiguous. It looks like she's escorted off and probably doesn't die. Telemachus does kill Melanthius instead of mutilating him. However, Nolan intentionally changed this. He called the poem's ending, quote, so grim and so misogynistic And again, if you are
It's a bunch
using
of
source material from a time when you're uncomfortable with, maybe you shouldn't use that source material. Maybe you could make a movie that is not
it's a bunch of scorned men
Okay.
and women who have tried to go after some of those scorned men. What would you expect them to do? They're going to do really horrible stuff because they're mad.
And in a culture that's very different from ours,
Right.
that would have been
And
an
I don't-
acceptable decision.
I don't know if we got this right, and if I'm saying something that's unnecessary, just cut it all together. But Melanthius was the goat herd. He was the shepherd, and he had betrayed Odysseus.
Right.
The swineherd was the one who accepted the beggar Odysseus and helped him. So the goat herd was bad. The swineherd was good.
The swineherd was good.
Yes.
The cow herd was also good, only in the book. Felicius.
I like that.
Coesius.
Oh, move over. I've got another change. Okay.
You
The
are
ending of
utterly
the movie-
impossible.
I love cow jokes. In the movie, killing guests in his own hall broke Zeus's law. So Odysseus abdicates the throne and sails west into exile with Penelope. Off into the wild blue yonder, blah, blah. They wanted to go off and have a romantic holiday. Let's get real. Telemachus was crowned. Sailing is intercut with Odysseus bleeding out from his arrow wounds in Penelope's arms. It was the exile real? Is it a dying dream? It's deliberately ambiguous. It's cool.
Man, I didn't feel that it was ambiguous.
Yeah, he gave you all kinds of options to consider. Let's say that.
If Nolan wanted it to look like, well, maybe this is a dream, I didn't get that. But.
Yeah. In the book, Odysseus' kingship is restored. The suitors can rise up, and Athena imposes peace.
All right. So I wanted to talk just briefly before we get into like full trivia on the fact that we did not read the same translations. We did that on purpose. And there have been insults and things said about most of the translations, positive and negative. So just to quickly go through, and I'll give you a couple of examples of how these stand apart. So Fitzgerald is the translation that Dad read. The audiobook is by Dan Stevens, someone I don't recognize. So this is back from 1961. It's certainly the oldest translation that we read. And there are Greek style spellings in the physical copies of this book. And so it's a little harder to read if you're reading a physical copy. It was the big school standard for a very long time. Fitzgerald also wrote some slurs, which we will learn is not the only one. He added slurs that the Greek text did not contain. Then, in 1996, Robert Fagles wrote a free verse variable version of the poem. This is the one that I believe Mom listened to. It is narrated by Sir Ian McKellen, and I've heard
more
fantastic.
It's not in rhythm.
It's not in a specific rhythm.
Okay. Yeah, it's not in a poetic rhythm.
It's a fairly expansive telling, so it's probably a little longer than some of the other ones. It is the modern bestseller. It does add some additional slurs as well. Fagles added some things that they called the women, the girl slaves. However, it was praised because Penelope in Fagles' version was portrayed very strong compared to Fitzgerald's version, where she's a little bit weaker, apparently. I read Stanley Lombardo's version. This is a lot harder to find. There is an audiobook that he reads. However, I'm so glad actually that I picked this one. It's very short in comparison, and it's written in modern American idiom to try to be something that you could perform in America in the year 2000 and be understood. For me, this was the perfect translation to read because it was not complicated. It was easy to follow. Not hard.
Did he recite it to a drum?
Yeah. In the audiobook. I didn't listen to the audiobook, but it says so on the internets. So while Fitzgerald and Fagles were, talked about for some political things like the slurs and things in their versions, the register itself of this one was the controversial part. So the New York Times reviewed his Iliad, and they called it Yo Achilles, which was the copy of their review, which I thought was funny. Finally, Emily Wilson, wrote the 2017 version. It was written in strict iambic pentameter, exactly the same lines as the Greek, 12,110. This is the one Josiah read. It is intentionally unheroic, and Emily Wilson has been praised and criticized for her political leanings within the text. She intentionally tilts sympathy away from Odysseus. She said that she wanted it to be more accurate to quote history and calls the enslaved characters slaves and not maids. She also dropped some invented slurs. Interestingly, though, a lot of people have had issues with the fact that this was the translation that Christopher Nolan used. However, she, though saying that you should go see the movie and it's really important, is a fairly big critic. I think we'll talk about that a little bit more. So I'm just going to read you I'm going to read you two different things. So the first one is a line that I'm going to read all four versions, and I have to pull mine up in my Kindle, actually. All right, so oldest to newest. So Fitzgerald, this was Dad's version from 1961. Sing in me, muse, and through tell me the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending, the wanderer, harried for years on end. In Fagles' version, the one Mom read, sing to me of the man, muse, the man of twists and turns, driven time and again off course once he had plundered the hallowed heights of Troy. Lombardo, the one I read, this is the first line of the epic poem. Speak, memory, of the cunning hero, the wanderer, blown off course time and again after he plundered Troy's sacred heights. You hear how that's so simple. The whole thing is like that. It's great. And then Wilson, which we already mentioned, intentionally recast Odysseus. Tell me about a complicated man. Muse, tell me how he wandered and was lost when he had wrecked the holy town of Troy.
Wrecked.
So,
yeah.
I know, it's like a really harsh one. So there was another line that we pulled. I just wanted to kind of see how some of the other parts felt. The 61 version, poets are not to blame, but Zeus who gives what fate he pleases to adventurous men. The Fagles version, which again is Mom's and was very, very long. Why, mother, poised Telemachus put in sharply, why deny our devoted bard the chance to entertain us any way the spirit stirs him on? Bards are not to blame. Zeus is to blame. He deals to each and every laborer on this earth whatever doom he pleases. Emily Wilson's says, poets are not to blame for how things are. Zeus is. He gives to each as is his will. Do not blame Phemius because he told about the Greek disasters. You must know the newest song is always praised the most. And Lombardo's, singers are not responsible. Zeus is, who gives what he wants to every man on earth. No one can blame Phemius for singing the doom of the Danons. It's always the newest song an audience praises most. So I just thought that was really interesting because we each read the same book, but we did not each read the same book. Yeah. Like this is the first time that there has been something like this. So
yeah.
So I'm looking ahead.
Yeah.
To the book ratings. The one that I read gets the highest ratings.
And the one that I read gets the lowest.
Movie ratings. Rotten Tomatoes Critics Tomato Meter has this at a 94%. And I pulled these numbers Saturday evening. So 2 days ago from the time of our recording.
The 94% ranks it technically third as they show it, but 94% is the tied number for his highest critic rated movies. The other two being The Dark Knight and Memento, which are also fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, I would have thought that. Okay.
You would have rated others higher.
Oppenheimer.
Oppie.
Yeah, Oppenheimer.
It's one of the low. No, it's 93%. So it's just literally 1 percentage point below. But his lowest rated film is Batman Begins with an 85% from what I'm looking at. That's lower than
Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, no, there are some. No, Doodlebug is his lowest.
I thought
Sorry.
you were getting
He
ready
might be
to
a
say
producer
Dougal.
on that, not the director.
Yeah, no, it looks like The Prestige is director. I'm looking for producer. Oh, he was executive producer on Transcendence in
He
2014,
was.
which got a
Yeah.
19%. And Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League. Ugh.
His director of photography that he always worked with wanted to do Transcendence, and so Nolan supported him foraying into directing.
good
and it didn't
friend.
work.
Oh, nice. Okay. Box office. The production cost of this film is $250 million. This is Nolan's second film to hit this high budget. Okay. What was the other one? Same cost.
What was the other one? That stumps me because like Oppenheimer doesn't seem
I'm
like
not
it
there
would
yet.
have cost that much because it didn't have the crazy amount of special effects. But
Are we talking only as executive producer
No,
or
he's
as
director.
something else?
He's director.
he's the director.
This
He's
was
a
his-
director
I
of this
worry
one.
it
Yeah.
was Tenet.
I would say one of the Batman films, but
Oh yeah, Dark Knight
Tenet?
Rises.
I know Justice. Oh, he's director. That wasn't the same. Interstellar.
Okay.
Looks like Interstellar
ooh,
or Tenet may be the answers,
So
right?
one of you did hit it. It's Dark Knight Rises.
It's a superhero
Whoa.
film.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's funny because that's several years ago. And
Yeah.
so
12.
that tells you,
Is
that
a
does tell
decade
you
ago?
though,
More than
he-
a decade.
it does tell
14
you,
years.
say a little bit about the fact that he's not driven by, oh, well, this one has to be better. This one has to cost more money. Well,
Right.
I can
This
use
is my second one. It has to be more
I kinda
expensive
found
than
that-
the last one.
Yeah, I kind of found that interesting. The opening weekend, 123.5 million. That was in 3,919 theaters. So the big wide release, big IMAX release, kept Spider-Man out of IMAX, which is interesting because newsflash, Spider-Man blew him out of the water for the first weekend. That's beside the point. USA Canada gross 359 million to date. It's been out a few weeks now. And international gross 363 million. So as of the first weekend in August, it has had a box office take of 722 million. I think he's going to make his money back.
Did you know that Spider-Man Brand New Day has surpassed the Odyssey as of its first weekend?
Did you
Massive,
see that
killed
it broke the
Ooh,
record
yeah.
for biggest ever opening weekend?
Over Endgame, which is
By, like,
crazy.
3
It's
million.
at
Over-
900.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's $932 million right now.
And
it has been out for 5 days.
And it broke the first day record as well. So it's slaughtered. It was filmed in Morocco, Western Sahara, Greece, Italy, Iceland, Scotland, and the U.S. Between February 25th and August 5th of 2025. I have just a very short mini game, another little trivia thing. I'd already established that this movie was rated R. This is the fourth film directed by Christopher Nolan that was R rated. Can you name the other three?
I think the Batman one that had Bane in it.
I think those are all PG-13.
You think?
Yeah, I think
Is Oppenheimer rated R?
It has
Oppenheimer,
It has
yeah.
nudity.
Oppenheimer is rated R. Oh yeah, Florence.
Yeah.
And all her-
Memento is rated
Memento's
R,
rated
right?
very R. And then
Yeah.
Okay.
the one, is it going to be the one before that? Like Insomnia?
That's them.
That's Insomnia?
good.
You are so good.
Insomnia.
Memento and Insomnia and
Wow.
Oppenheimer.
Insomnia is his
I've not
least
seen
Nolan-esque.
Memento and Insomnia. I've heard things about them. Like I should probably see them.
Insomnia doesn't matter that much. I think the big thing is Robin Williams plays a bad guy. That's interesting.
So, final verdicts. I'm going to go first.
Okay.
All right. The book. I'm so sorry. Okay, you know what? I need to put my fairness hat on.
Fairness.
I rated Lombardo's translation because that's what I read. I liked the way he wrote it and it was followable. This was an epic poem supposedly written in the 8th century BC. I cannot hold it to a standard of a 2025, 2026 book, okay? So knowing all of those things, it is one of the most culturally relevant books that has ever been written. So I'm going to give it like an 8.5 out of 10 because how could you not? Like, it's so relevant. I don't know that I enjoyed it, an 8.5 out of 10. It was hard to follow because not the way it was written when mine was fine, but just following a book that is following a poem, like an epic poem is tough. Like, it was hard. So the film, I have incredibly mixed feelings. We haven't gotten into like a zillion things that I would kind of like to talk about that we just don't have time for or space for, and this is not the podcast for it. But there were a lot of things that I think were subtle changes that I was not a fan of from the perspective of like how they try to change the way that culture was displayed. But I mean, it's Hollywood. I probably should just expect what I expect. So I enjoyed the film. I did not like that they made Odysseus less selfish. I think that the cruelty and the selfishness and the bizarre grimness of the poem were interesting. Yeah. Like, it was interesting and relevant for when it was written. And I kind of wish that we had just gotten that film, but that film would not have made its money. And Christopher Nolan probably wouldn't have made it in the first place. So I think the film for me was like an 8 out of 10. There were a few things I didn't love. A couple of special effects were a little weird. And then honestly, the only reason I'm not giving it like a 9 something is more the like kind of ethical conundrums I have that are just, they're minor. Like, they're, compared to a lot of other crap that's come out over the last 10 years, I'm not super upset about it. And I really enjoyed the film. I would like to go see it one more time, at least because our theater had a power surge when we were in the actual theater. So about 40 minutes into the film, it went off for 35 minutes. Like, we listened to about 10 minutes of it with no screens, but everything restarted. It is a digital IMAX, so it didn't destroy the film, but, because as we talked about, that's crazy. But it got cut right before the scene with Polyphemus or whatever his name is, the
Cyclops.
Cyclops, thank you. I almost said Calypso, and I'm like, that's definitely not it. So I would like to see it again where it's like all the way through, because the immersion breaking was really rough in that moment. But he did a great job adapting it for 2026 for Hollywood. Like, in the situation that we live in, it's probably the best adaptation you could have had. So.
All right, I will go after my lovely daughter. I read Fagles, or I listened to Fagles. Ian McKellen has a very pleasant reading voice. It was not hard to listen to him. It wasn't hard to keep up with him, but I did struggle to stay in a story, in a focused story. Part of that is my deficit, and I know that. I just could not. I kept up with it, and I was very determined that I was going to be focused on it, and I was. So I didn't not finish it or lose it or whatever. But I think there were parts of it that I did miss, because I was trying to think through other things that I had just heard or what he built up to or whatever. So I would give the book, I would say a 7, mostly for the reason I would say it, like Rebekah said, I might give this version a little higher version, but it was hard for me to follow in many respects. The film, you're right. We could do a total extra bonus episode and sit here for 2 days and talk about what we thought about this and that, little picky things about the film. But my overarching thought is this. I walked out of Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar and Inception and Oppenheimer and Dunkirk. That one didn't come up. I walked out of those films in awe. I was so moved by them, even maybe if there were parts I didn't care for. I was emotionally moved. This to me was just a good story. It wasn't, I'm not going to trash it because I didn't dislike it. I do want to see it again because I want to give it another opportunity to really awe me. I think, that's really the biggest takeaway for me. And maybe that's not Christopher Nolan's fault. That's on me for thinking I'm going to walk out of this. Good experiences don't all have to end with the same feeling. And I recognize that. So I'm going to give the movie, for me personally, I'll say an 8. If I see it again, I might give it a higher rating, but here's the deal. All those other movies I mentioned, I've watched again and again. And a few of them I've watched many, many times. And this one, I have not been compelled to just go back and see it. Like, I'm so excited to go back and see Spider-Man right now. It's currently 10:41 p.m. If there was an 11 o'clock show and I thought I could stay up, I'd go see it. I'm so excited to go back and see it. I felt that way before about previous Nolan movies. But the other thing I took away from this that's not rating is I don't mind spoilers for things. That doesn't bother me to know this or that's going to go on. And so I watched a lot of reviewers hate and love on either side before this came out. And this is the first time I wish I hadn't done that because they thought that Lupita Nyong'o was going to be somebody else. And they thought that Ellen Elliott Page was going to be somebody else. And they went through all this supposing of how awful this was going to be. And it ruined my first experience with it. And that's another reason I want to go back and see it. So kudos to Nolan. The big scenes were big. The loud scenes were loud and incredible. The storm scene, I was genuinely afraid in the middle of the storm. So those were great takeaways for me. So that's my
fun
thing.
fact. The loudest scene of the film was when Polyphemus or Polyphemus screams after it's stabbed in the eye. Yeah. And it is 125 decibels in most IMAX cinemas, which is very close to the incredibly loud 128 decibel peak in The Dark Knight. So it's like one of the loudest scenes in modern cinema.
I would have assumed it was the ship.
Pretty cool.
Goodness.
That was super loud too.
I was
literally anxious during that scene.
I think it was I think that was a more chaotic sound than what the Cyclops was, is probably why it seemed like it was louder. But
well, I can go. I think that the translation I read, I mostly enjoyed it. I think I can get on board with something that Emily Wilson and Chris Nolan both believe in. I don't think it's popular, but old stories, in our opinion, do not need to be told in English with fancy King James English and a British accent.
Sure.
And I appreciated that Claire Danes was just reading this audiobook. Emily Wilson was just writing it. Chris Nolan had everyone speak in American accents. It was like proper English, but it wasn't fancy English. Telemachus, there were some people, it didn't bother, I didn't even think about it for a second, but it bothered some people that Telemachus called Odysseus his dad instead of father.
Yeah.
He's my dad, or something like that. I don't know what the line was.
Yeah.
Didn't bother me at all.
My dad's coming home, yeah.
Like, they didn't speak in British King James English either. It's just shorthand that I think it would be good if we got over as a society that British automatically means old and fancy. I enjoyed the translation in so much as I could enjoy this story, very old, as a classic, as an epic that preserves a story from history in a bygone era before they really wrote things down. You know, you get a 9.5, 10 out of 10 for the idea of the story, the impact of the story. Just for enjoying it nowadays, maybe a soft 8 out of 10, 7.9 out of 10 for the book. I was surprised at how much time was spent on the ending, on him after he got home. I looked at the time, and I was like, how do I still have 7 chapters left? It's only like 30 chapters in the whole book. He's back home. And in the movie, I also thought, there's a lot of this. He's like maintaining his disguise, and he's not telling everyone right away.
Yeah.
And he's got to visit the goat. He's got to visit the swine herd. He's got to pet the dog. He's got to be coy with Telemachus. All this stuff. So it took a while, but I was engaged, especially after he made it home. It was easy for me to stay engaged. Movie was great. It's definitely in my top half of Nolan films. I don't care about Dunkirk. I want to rewatch Tenet, but it's, just kind of fine. I wish Interstellar's ending treated me smarter. Dark Knight Rises was a little messy, but it's in the top half for me, the Odyssey. I think it's appropriately big. I think that it is epic. I can definitely see it enduring in a way that, okay, so imagine 50 years from now, what Nolan films are we going to be talking about? I think we're talking about Dark Knight. I think we're talking about Interstellar, even with the ending that I don't completely believe in. It's probably going to be his most beautiful movie he ever makes. I think Oppenheimer is going to stand the test of time, and I think that Odyssey will stand the test of time, even though I like Prestige better, probably. I think I like Oppenheimer better. Something about the Odyssey. Chris Nolan knows what Mr. Bone, rest in peace, my marching band instructor, who I can't believe passed away. He couldn't have been. Was he 50 yet? Crazy.
54.
But when I was in high school, he was trying to describe his process of making these epic marching band shows. And he was like, Chris Nolan gets it. The Inception, it's one word. You don't need to fully know what it means, but it's an idea. Let's show what that idea means. It's cool. It's epic. We're going to take the audience on a ride, and it's going to mean something deeper. And I don't know if it was Mr. Bone inspiring me or if he was kind of saying what I was already thinking subconsciously. But I think the Odyssey has a lot of themes in there that are going to stand the test of time as well. Some from the original Odyssey, some that he kind of invented. I am anti-war, you got to go to war sometimes, but never, I don't think it's something to be relished, to be good at murdering. And the Odyssey movie, more than the book, is very critical of warfare, of these powerful men declaring, I want this land that my grandfather had access to the trade routes next to, or something like that. And it was impactful for me. Game of Thrones was a big thing for me to see. It's like, oh, war isn't all being cool. Like, you're killing, you're raping and pillaging and stuff like that. And to see Matt Damon's Odysseus, I thought, maybe it's because compared to the version I read, it was a difference. But I thought Matt Damon brought a nuance that he was not a good guy, but he was not a bad guy. He was determined. Honestly, I'm confused what Emily Wilson means by he didn't want, part of her criticism was that he didn't want to go home enough. What? I didn't get that from the movie. I didn't get that from Matt Damon.
The point of the story, you didn't like that, Emily Wilson?
She
wanted
him to go home, want to go home more. She didn't think that Matt Damon wanted it enough. I didn't quite get what she's talking about. So I give the movie, I think it's a solid 8.9 out of 10. So I'm going to say the movie was better.
That leaves me, and I will go ahead and give you the scores first. I would say The book for me was probably an 8.1, and I really enjoyed it. And the film, I would give it a 7.9, maybe an 8. It was just a little less. I liked the extra detail in the book. I thought the film was well done. I was very grateful that some of the concern and hype about the film was unnecessary and unsubstantiated. I'm glad for that. There were some parts of the film that I thought were really strange, and I am of the mind that we need to be honest about history and things that happened and why they happened, and we need to stop trying to clean up history and make it fit into our 21st century understanding of things. Because people did things that they felt were the right things for what they felt were the right reasons. And that happened throughout history because we think today this thing or that thing shouldn't have been. Let's call it something different, or let's judge it by today. That's a dangerous thing, because when we do that, we are encouraging others to judge us the same way. When we get 50 years past, or 100 years past, or 200 years past, and people look back and say, well, those were terrible people. And we don't feel like we're terrible people. We're doing the things we think need to be done in the way that they need to be done, given today. And so I prefer dealing with history in the facts of history and doing a lot less judging of it, because those things were done in the context of the time in which those people lived. And so I think we have to be careful of that. And I appreciated the fact that the book is honest about that. We understand that when you call somebody a servant, we know what that means. You know, they give their life to service. A slave is a little different, but functionally, it's not much different at all. And so I think we need to be careful how we judge history. But I think the film took out a few things that I think were important. The book emphasizes that the gods use humanity as pawns. I think taking that out seemed to give the human beings more agency, but it was less like the story.
Sure.
So I would give it just a little bit less. Thought it was well done. It looks epic, but I did not leave the film thinking, wow, I want to see that again, or that was something, that was just really something. I left the film thinking that was well done and just a little lackluster. Not terrible at all. Well done, but not fantastic kind of thing.
Nolan,
like not his best.
Exactly. Yeah. There are things he's done that I left the theater thinking, wow, like Donna was saying. And this one was not one of those.
Very true. All right. So, thank you guys for recording this episode with me. I love you. And it's nice to be deeply entrenched in season 4. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thanks for joining. If this is not your first time and you haven't left a 5-star rating or review yet, what are you doing? Do you even care about us? Are you a baby listener or not? Go do it, please. Also, you can support us on Patreon. We have been scheming up a bunch of fun ways to do bonus content. And it's also just a great way, especially now that we've gotten season 4 up and running, to get notified when new episodes drop so that you don't have to wonder. You can also use Discord if you join us on Patreon first. So that's another fun thing that you should be doing. You can also find us all over the place on social at Book is Better Pod. And until next time, the Odyssey. I can't do iambic pentameter. I don't know how to do the Odyssey.
Get
The
those
Odyssey.
Somebody
out
get
of
those
here.
beggars out of here.
Peloponnesian Peninsula.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Duh. That's not the most annoying sound you ever heard. This is the most annoying sound you ever heard. I love it. I am wondering if Josiah's video is ever going to unfreeze for me, but I'm going to just guess no.
He's moving
and move
on
on.
me.
It's fine.
He's got it.
I don't like that. I don't like the way that came off. I don't like that.